Hi, my name is Yannick Lefebvre and I'm a WordPress plugin developer. Welcome to my presentation on plugin development best practices and troubleshooting user issues. This is a video capture of a presentation that I recently gave at WordCamp Montreal 2010. I'm going to be touching upon many different topics in this presentation. First of all, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of who I am and what's my relationship to WordPress and developing plugins. Then I'm going to move into what are the best practices when you're actually creating plugins. The main areas that I'm going to be covering are, first of all, talking about how you can avoid conflicts between WordPress plugins and other plugins, or WordPress plugins and themes that users are going to be installing on their blogs. In the second section of this presentation, I'm going to be discussing how you can maintain blog performance when you're writing code for your plugins. You always want to make sure that you're doing things that won't slow down the user experience. Next, I'm going to talk how you can make your plugins easy to use for people to really benefit from all the work that you're putting in these creations. And finally, I'm going to highlight a few general best practices when you're writing code and creating plugins for WordPress. So first of all, just to tell you a little bit about me, as I mentioned, my name is Yannick. I've been blogging since 2003. I actually moved into WordPress in 2004, migrating from Blogger. I really became a WordPress developer for plugins by necessity. What I mean by that is I had needs to fulfill on my site, and there were no plugins available to fulfill these needs. So I started to learn PHP and started to make my own plugins, and eventually started to publish these to a wider audience. My first plugin that I released was called Link Library, and that was released in March of 2005. Since then, including Link Library, I've actually published 5 different plugins. So Link Library is the first one, and I'll explain a little bit what that does. Tune Library is the second one that I released, followed by Weekly Schedule, Modal Dialog, and Community Events. So Link Library is a plugin that can be used to generate a page of links on a WordPress site. So WordPress has a great backend to be able to create link categories and enter links inside of each of these categories. But in terms of displaying the information that you're putting in there, all it has is a very simple widget that will just show a bullet list of your widgets. Now, I wanted to take advantage of all the information that I was entering in the back end. So things like the notes, the description, the image, all these extra elements I wanted to be able to display on screen so that people would be able to see these things. So I wrote Link Library as originally just a simple set of PHP functions that you could call from your site, and over time it grew. Now it has a full admin page, it has short code tags to be able to easily use Link Library on different pages. It has the ability to define multiple configurations to handle different link lists shown on different pages on your site. So there's really a lot of customizability and control over how you're going to configure things and how things are going to look. So the image you're seeing here is the plugin as it is used on my website today, and then this is an example of the plugin being used on a user site. So as you can see here, there's a different layout. This is a 2-column layout in this case. There's thumbnails of the different sites that are part of the Link Library in this case. All of these were actually generated automatically by the plugin, so there's no need to manually go in there and get the screenshots one by one. And then you can get to this kind of end result with a little bit of styling, playing with the style sheets and deciding how things are going to be rendered. The next one that I created was called Tune Library. So I got to a point where I wanted to let people know what kind of music I like to listen to. And so I developed a plugin that can basically import the XML file that iTunes uses to be able to store all of your data on which tracks you own or which tracks you have loaded up inside of your library. And then once this is loaded up inside of the WordPress database, then I have, again, a short code that you can put on a page that will extract the information, then let the user navigate through your music collection. So you can see there's things like the idea that artists and album can be collapsed and track lists will be available as you drill into the actual hierarchy. This is, once again, the site as it is used on my personal site, and then as it is used on one of my user sites. The third plugin that I developed is called Weekly Schedule. So this plugin was designed to be able to render a list of recurring weekly events on the site. So my goal here was that I wanted to tell people what kind of TV shows I like to listen to. And instead of just doing a simple table, I decided to build a plugin to do this, where I have a back-end admin section where I can enter the different events, and then a nice front-end section, as we can see here, where you can see a nice grid view of my schedule. As I hover over an item, I'm going to get a little thumbnail for that. As you can see, I'm a big fan of the Big Bang Theory, and so this is something that once I let this one out in the wild and uploaded this to the plugin repository, it started getting used on sites like online radio stations, as we can see here, or gyms. So here this is for a yoga, a gym with yoga classes, and so they have a schedule of when they have different classes available at their facility. The last two ones that I wrote were actually written for users. So I had users of my other plugins who contacted me and said that they needed help creating some capabilities for their site. And so I created two more plugins to be able to suit these needs. The first one is called Modal Dialog. So this is a plugin that can create a pop-up on your site. Now, yes, they're annoying. As you can see, this particular user even acknowledges that right in the text. But in some cases, there's users that do want these pop-up dialogues to offer things to their visitors, such as registering for a newsletter or going to bringing the users to a different section of their site. So in this case, it will do things like display the dialogue, but also keep track of whether or not it's been displayed or how many times you want to display it. So there's a lot of options there to configure this. The last one is still in its infancy, and this is a plugin called Community Events. So in this plugin, what I'm doing is letting users be able to have a real event calendar where events will be tied to specific date and time, and afterwards you can navigate things like you can see a weekly view of what's coming up, or get a full calendar of everything that's happening inside of that site, or all the events that are being registered on there.